welcome back to another ZX Spectrum compilation review. If you haven't seen my other compilation reviews, then just click the thingy in the corner or the link in the description and you'll go to a playlist of all the previous episodes. But today it's episode 13 and we're looking at Domark's 1990 collection of Tengen arcade games, TNT. But before we get into the games, a quick abridged history lesson. Atari was formed in 1972 by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, taking its name from the Japanese board game Go, and happily ran as a single organisation for 12 years, even after Bushnell sold the company to Warner Communications. But in 1984, the consumer electronics and home computer elements of Atari were sold to the Trammell Company, who were then renamed as Atari Corporation. After the sale, the remaining coin-op elements of the business were merged with another Warner company, At Games, and rebadged as Atari Games Corporation. And with two entities using the Atari brand, both with different ownership, each must strictly stay in their own lane. Which meant that whilst Atari Games could use the name in the arcades, it could not use that name on any home conversions of its arcade games, and therefore a new brand was needed. Again returning to the Go board game, the name Tengen was chosen, the word referring to the point at the very centre of the board, illustrated by the logo appearing to show crosshairs pointed at the centre of a square. And thus, all home conversions between APB's arcade release in 1987 and San Francisco Rush 2049 in 1999 were branded Tengen Inc. rather than Atari. And following Domark's great work on conversions of Atari's Star Wars trilogy of games, the company was temporarily given exclusive rights to produce home versions of all Tengen games. And that brings us neatly back to TNT. A collection of 5 of Tengen's biggest hits were told to light the fuse and stand back for TNT, the explosive action pack from Tengen. Test your skills on 5 top coin-op hits featuring the very best in arcade action. Humorous, exciting, stimulating. For great variety and value, break open the crate. And inside that crate, we find Robot Maze Escape Xybots, Inner Tube White Water Race Toobin, fantasy-themed shooter Dragon Spirit, 3D driving simulation Hard Drivin, and comedy Cop Capers in APB. Okay, let's kick off with the packaging as usual, and we have TNT. It's in a nice crate-style box. Mine's got a big massive dent there, which is a bit of a shame, but otherwise it's in fairly good condition. On the front it says TNT Danger Explosive Software. This crate contains hard driving, Toobin, APB, Dragon Spirit and Xybots, and as you can see it's got the stick of dynamite and the artwork from the various games. The edges kind of loses the 3D, the effect of it being a crate when the image transfers over the edge. Like that, but never mind. It just says TNT all the way around and handily compilation under it. We also get a picture of each of the arcade machines, which is quite nice, and a screenshot from the arcade versions, and a little write-up of each of the games, which is mostly just superlatives from various magazines. The ones that are specifically Spectrum are Hard Driving. We get a surefire hit, said Sinclair user. And APB, a must buy, say Crash, and I think they're the only Spectrum specific comments that are on there, but there you go. It's quite straightforward, nice looking box. And when we look inside, we have 3 cassettes. Let me just get them out of the bag. So this one has Toobin and APB. Quite nice. It's got TNT and Tengen at the bottom and the Tengen logo, and what I do like is that each of the games has the name written in the logo style for each individual game, so each are unique, which is very nice. So that's the first tape. The Dragon Spirit we actually get on both sides of this tape because one is level data and one is the main game. And finally we have Xybots and Hard Driving. Then we get the manual. The image, same as the front, is rotated to landscape, but you turn it to portrait to read. And inside we get, for each game, there's Hard Driving, We get some screenshots, which in black and white don't really help much. Some nice drawings though, I do like that. And the kind of information we get are the controls for all the different versions, and some information on getting started and some game tips. Yeah, loading instructions for each of the versions. It was released on the major 8-bits and 16-bits, so both are included in the manual. We get English and then Italian, and then we move on to the next game, Toobin, and we get similar again. Not quite as good artwork on this one, but lots of screenshots, similar information. So yeah, that follows through on all of the games. Quite impressive little booklet. Nice cover. Very colourful. Shame that the inside is all black and white though. Other than that though, I think it's really nice. So I'll put that back and let's see what the game's like. APB was released in the arcades in 1987 by Atari Games, with the Spectrum version getting its initial release in '89. It was a multi-load on the 48K Spectrum and the other 8-bits, if memory serves, but lucky 128K owners like me were able to load the full game in one go. There's an interesting David Whittaker theme tune on the menu screen, but it's pretty downbeat and I don't think it suits the game at all. And I think the same theme is used on all of the 8 and 16-bit home computer versions. But the bigger issue with the presentation for me though is the loading screen. It's a fairly nice drawing of an officer in a 70s or 80s style American cop car, but why the hell did we need the hitchhiker to be Theresa May in hot pants? A humorous take on the life of a traffic cop. You're Officer Bob, and you must try and survive 7 days on the job. 8 if you include the tutorial level. All can be selected right from the get-go, but we'll kick off with our training day. Using the rotational controls, we must navigate our way around the test track, arresting traffic cones. Arrests are made by manoeuvring our crosshairs over the offending item whilst holding the fire button. The controls are a bit tricky to start with. Actually, they stay quite tricky throughout. But meet your quota and get back to base, and the training day will end, and you'll be given a time and fuel bonus, plus extra points for any additional arrests made above your quota. Day 2 has us hunting down litterbugs. Though on this play, I found the level to be quite deserted. But a little more driving and I finally found the low-down good-for-nothings. Six arrests are needed to complete the day, but there are plenty of other things to do for bonus points or time. When you're down to your last arrest, in-game music will kick in, and this is far jollier and more fitting than the dull title theme. If you fail to make it back to base before your shift's over, you won't be penalised, but you also won't get any bonus points. Next we get our first all points bulletin. An APB has been put out on Freddy Freak, a notorious drug dealer. Spot his car and ram it until he submits. Though finding the villains is not easy with this large game map, so these only being optional tasks is very welcome. Our quota today is only 4 litterbugs, but we do also have to help a stranded motorist. Other activities available to us are collecting cash left lying around on the side of the road and donuts for extra time. We can also drive to the gas station to fill the tank, or we can head to the shop to upgrade our car. Additional items are added to the shop on each new level, so it's worth visiting each time to beef up your vehicle with things like improved acceleration, speed and braking. You can even get a gun eventually, which will make taking the APBs out much easier. Next up are honkers and hitchers. Honkers needing to be flashed twice for an arrest. And the game continues in this vein until you've caught all the major criminals, or you rack up too many demerits by crashing your car or bumping other road users without using your siren. I was a fan of the arcade version of APB and its large sit-down cab with flashing red and blue lights, cartoony graphics and lots of digitised speech. The Spectrum version has lost the speech and the small play area is now monochrome, but it's probably as good a conversion as we were likely to get. Rotational controls are no match for a steering wheel, and there's some really strange scrolling when travelling diagonally that has the screen scrolling vertically and then horizontally, with the effect being that your car looks like it's wandered onto a pinball table. But all things considered, APB's a fine conversion to start off this compilation, so let's hope the others follow suit. Xybots was originally designed by Atari's Ed Log as a sequel to Gauntlet, but the marketing teams felt that they'd flogged the Gauntlet horse a little too much, and instead they settled on a theme based on Major Havoc. It released in 1987 with a unique control system that required the player to rotate the joystick to turn their view through 90 degrees. The Spectrum version was released 2 years later and was coded by Tech Software Development, who also handled the conversion of Toobin on this compilation and a number of other Tengen releases for Domark. The play screen is split into 5 zones, an information panel and game screen for each player, and a level map. Rock and Ace can be played individually or simultaneously, and must wander the maze dispatching enemy robots whilst collecting coins, keys and cannons until you find the end warp. You move around with the standard directional controls, moving forwards and back and strafing left and right. But with no rotational joystick, to turn you'll need to hold down the fire button and move left or right. There are a number of different enemies. Some head straight for you in kamikaze style, others have shields that only drop when they fire on you, and some take many hits to defeat. And every few levels you'll find a master Xybot who must be defeated to progress, otherwise you're thrown back a few levels and must start again. You only have one life, but this is represented as energy and it's constantly reducing. Collectibles can increase your energy, and you can buy power-ups at the end of level shop, but it's always advisable to be fleet of foot. The first few levels are simple and linear, but soon the maps open up and a small amount of exploration will be required. I played Xybots quite a bit in the arcades, when as a 16-year-old I got a job at Manchester Royal Infirmary as an accounts assistant. It was a glorified office junior role, and as I worked in an office with ladies of a certain age who made no real attempt to integrate a spotty-faced upstart, on my lunch break I'd often hop on the bus a few stops up Oxford Road to the Leisure Time arcade next door to McDonald's. I only stayed in that job for 6 months, what that equates to probably 50 visits to the arcade, and I remember they had a 4-player WWF game near the doors, and a little further in was Xybots. It was a tall machine with a futuristic look, and I sunk a good few 10p's into it, never getting that far, but always getting my money's worth. And that's pretty much how I feel about the Speccy port. It's captured all the feel of the arcade without too much compromise, and the continues option means I can get to see more of the game without using up my bus fare home. The game certainly didn't break any moulds in the arcade, and in turn it wouldn't win any awards on the home systems, but it still gives me that warm feeling of youth, and that same quizzical feeling when I look at the information panel and realise I've absolutely no clue what any of those icons mean. As this title screen tells us, Dragon Spirit was originally developed by Namco, but Atari Games handled its distribution when the game hit US arcades in 1987, hence its inclusion in this Tengen pack. A fantasy-themed vertical shoot-'em-up, Dragon Spirit bears a number of resemblances to Namco's earlier game Xevious, such as the use of air and ground weapons, and your ship, or dragon in this case, being able to take 2 hits before a life is lost. The Spectrum version was coded in 1989 by Christian Urquhart, who'd previously worked on a number of early Ocean titles like Hunchback and Cavalon, but his only other shoot-'em-up was the well-received Executor for Ace Software, Executor scored a Sinclair User Classic and a YS Mega Game in the autumn of 1987, so that certainly bodes well for Dragon Spirit. And Executor's a game I'll be planning to cover on my One Life reviews, so keep an eye out for that one. Taking control of the large, powerful dragon, you must battle through 8 levels to rescue Princess Alicia from the evil serpent demon Zool. Pressing fire will appropriately make your dragon spit fire. This starts as small splutters, but as power-ups are collected, it'll increase into a full-on bellow, as huge fireballs rage from up to 3 dragon heads. You also have ground enemies, however, so bombs must be used to take them out. Of course, in the arcades this was done with a second fire button, but as the Spectrum only uses a single fire button, the bombs are activated by using the space key. And this, for me, is the game's major flaw. A fast and frantic shooter needs your full concentration, so looking down to find the spacebar and taking your hands off the joystick is a recipe for disaster. This could have been solved if they'd simply mapped both bomb and shoot to the single fire button, but as it stands, the only way I can play the game is by putting a weight on the spacebar so that the bombs are constantly dropping. The graphics are nice, with some effective animation of the large dragon sprite and some cool dinosaurs and other enemies. The 8 levels all feature different terrains and are really well graphically differentiated. However, I found the game to be quite difficult due to the large size of the dragon, so for the footage of later levels I did need to use a poke. At the end of the levels, you'll find the arcade's large bosses, but as in the arcade, if you've collected a few power-ups, they don't hold too much challenge. At least early on, that is. The varied backgrounds, enemies, terrains, and bosses do stop the game becoming too repetitive or boring. And there are no environmental obstacles, so you're free to use the whole play screen. Colour has been used well for the HUD and certain background elements like water, but my favourite is the volcano on level 2, where the red and yellow colouring looks great and even the attribute clash simply looks like a glow created by the white hot molten lava. I've never played the game in the arcades, but I have had a few goes on MAME, and the Spectrum version appears faithful and playable, and despite my issues with the use of the bomb, I found it a lot of fun. Being a multi-load didn't cause me too much concern, but there was apparently a bug in the original release that made it impossible to load the final level. It can be fixed with a poke, and I believe the version included in TNT was already fixed, but that must have been disappointing for gamers back in '89 after slogging through 7 tough levels only to find that level 8 couldn't be played. Nevertheless, I'd never have got that far, so I wouldn't have known the issue even existed. And ignorance, as they say, is bliss. Hard driving was a big deal when it hit the arcades early in 1989. Billed as the world's first authentic driving simulation game, it featured a realistic clutch and gearbox, haptic feedback steering wheel, and one of the first 3D polygon driving environments. Costing $10,000, the arcade machine was one of the most expensive on the market, but even at that price it was a hit, and home ports followed less than 9 months later. Matt Day and Matt Furnish created the Spectrum version to great acclaim, gaining a Crash Smash and a YS Mega Game in their Christmas 1989 issues. Crash called the 3D graphics out of this world, and also praised the speed that the game moves at. You've got 2 choices of track in hard driving, the speed track and the stunt track, which contains not only a broken bridge to jump, but also a Sonic-style loop-the-loop. The map screen tells us that hard driving is a revolutionary driving simulation, combining an accurate model of race car handling with true 3D graphics. You can't get closer to the thrill of real racing without a fireproof suit, so let's take it for a spin. You initially get the choice of manual or auto, and with manual, you'll change the gears by pushing up and down while pressing fire, but I'm choosing auto. Pushing up to turn the key, and we're off. The stunt track is off to the right, but for now I'm going to stay on the safer speed track. Up is used to accelerate, but you quickly realise that none of the controls are auto-centering, so if you accelerate hard you're going to need to remember to push down to stop accelerating. This definitely takes a lot of getting used to, especially with no visual indicator of the neutral position. Steering is similar, where you must correct your wheel every turn, but at least here you get a helpful needle under the 2 indicator arrows, that shows how far the wheel is turned, and this quickly becomes the most important info on the dash, especially as I struggled to get to grips with the handling. You do get speed signs dotted about to help you judge the speed to take the corners, but it's still easier said than done. The graphics may lack definition, but for true 3D to be running so smoothly and so fast on a 48K machine, it's amazing, and we even get action replays of our crashes and fails. I haven't managed to complete a loop in the allotted 2 minutes yet, but I have come close a few times. So let's have a look at that stunt track. Just turning right onto the track appears to be a bit of a challenge, and there's a steep downhill section next that you need to take it around 40 miles an hour. So let's try that again. And again. Okay, we made it, and now we head towards the bridge jump. Which again I've misjudged. Time's running out, but I did successfully land the jump. And whilst we won't get to try it out, at least we can see the death-defying loop. Hard driving is definitely more simulation than fun, but I enjoyed the steep challenge, and if I owned it in '89 I definitely would have stuck with it to get my skills up, so Domark really should be applauded for achieving what should really have been impossible on the Spectrum, given the turgid speeds of other 3D games like those using Freescape. It certainly isn't going to appease arcade junkies, but for those with a little patience, the rewards are definitely out there. Playing is either Biff or Jet, the self-proclaimed Tube Dudes. Toobin is apparently the major coin-op hit of the year, and the world's first inner tube race. Released by Atari in '88, Toobin has you travelling downscreen in a race across 5 rivers in your rubber ring. The arcade cab used 5 buttons per player, rather than a joystick, to control each hand in both forwards and backwards directions, as well as a fire button to throw cans. The home versions did include joystick control, but I always use keys for that authentic feel. Featuring similar cartoony graphics and jaunty surfer music to the arcade cab, Toobin gets off to a great start in the presentation stakes, and immediately feels like a quality product. It may be billed as a race, but as there isn't really a finish line, that's a bit misleading. The aim of the game is simply to keep travelling down the screen, collecting bonuses and navigating through gates until your lives run out. There are plenty of obstacles and enemies to impede your progress, such as sharp twigs or fishing hooks that can pop your tube, rocks and banks that can slow you down, an alligator that will attack if you dawdle too long, and snipers, fishermen and natives taking pot shots. In 2-player mode, you can also bustle and barge your opponent and try and shove them into obstacles. But the constant issue is the flow of the water, meaning you can get carried away into the path of an obstacle or just get stuck and waste precious time. The controls are a variation on standard rotational movement, in that to turn you move one of your hands forwards or backwards, but to move forwards or back, you hold down the keys for both hands at the same time. This can take a little getting used to, and I'm unsure why the default fire button is above the movement keys on the Spectrum when it's below in the arcades, but a couple of goes and you do get used to it. And with 4 extra credits in the machine, you should be able to travel quite a way through the rivers. There's no doubt that adding a second player brings the game to life, and adds massively to the longevity as you battle for bonus gates or simply bash into them to deliberately reduce the bonus for your opponent. But even in single player, there's a lot of fun to be had on the Rapids. And just like the 4 games before it, Toobin is a quality conversion that shows that Atari's faith in Domark was very well placed. Sinclair reviewed TNT in issue 58, saying that whilst there was nothing alarmingly good, it was a solid, dependable compilation all the same, scoring the collection an 84. Though the reviewer did get the maths wrong when they said that 5 games at $14.99 is £2.998 per game, which is apparently 8 pence more than your average budget game. Well, I don't recall many budget games selling for £2.91.8. CMVG covered all 5 versions in their short review, the Spectrum receiving a 70% score, where they said that Drivin and Xybots are the pick of a not bad bunch, but that you should take a look before parting with your cash. Sinclair user were quick to point out that this is the second Domark compilation released this Christmas to feature Drivin. Wheels of Fire, reviewed on the same page, packaged the game with Chase HQ, Power Drift and Turbo Outrun, scoring 69%. TNT scored slightly lower at 67%, despite the reviewer actually seeming to like all of the games in the review text. There was a second compilation of Domark's Tengen games, called TNT 2 Double Dynamite, but the quality of the games definitely looks lower. I don't own this one yet, but if I can find a cheap copy somewhere, then I might review it at some point. But let's get back to TNT, and look at my scores. Xybots is a game I have a soft spot for, and it's a fine conversion of a fairly unloved coin-op, and that gets a 7. Toobin has all the fun and charm of the arcade original, with a great 2-player mode, and as far as I can tell nothing left out, so that gets a 7 too. APB does an admirable job of taking a sit-down arcade cabinet and fitting it into 48K. There have been compromises, such as the weird diagonal scrolling, but nothing that takes away from that APB feeling, so that gets a 7 as well. Dragon Spirit is a surprisingly accurate conversion of another underappreciated game. The multi-load holds it back a little, but without it the game couldn't have been as good as it is, so another 7. Drivin should have been impossible on a 48K Spectrum, but it's actually a bloody good and faithful conversion, even more so than the 16-bit versions which actually had bits cut out that made it into this one. I can't find any information on other Spectrum games coded by Mike Day, so if this really was a one and done on the system, then Mike absolutely deserves his 8 points, which gives us an average score for the 5 games on TNT of 7.2. The packaging was nicely presented, and it was pleasing that they used 3 tapes instead of trying to squeeze it all onto 2. The manual was nice with a colourful cover and plenty of information for all the games, though the text size was quite small and the screenshots didn't show up very well in black and white, but overall a nice package that scores 8. The compilation was expensive though, at £15 for 5 games, but all were originally released in the second half of 1989, so were a little over a year old when the compilation came out, and at £3 each, that's premium budget material, which is probably about right for 12 to 18 month old arcade conversions, but as you're being forced to buy all 5, I do think the price is a little steep. Even just a £2 reduction to $12.99 would have been more palatable, which is exactly what they did for the sequel. But at $14.99 and scoring a total of 36 points, that's 42 pence per point, and scores 7.5. And all that means that TNT from Domark and Tengen scores a very respectable 74.2%. Rather surprisingly, that score only manages 8th on the leaderboard, and we see that the compilations now need to score more than 64% just to get into our top 12. TNT is our second Domark compilation, after last episode's Star Wars trilogy, and on the publishers chart, this changes their average rating to 75.6% and dropping them out of the top 3 to 5th. But this chart's still in its infancy, and at some point I will remove all the publishers with just one compilation reviewed to make it a little more meaningful. That's it for TNT, but if you're interested in seeing how TNT turned out on the C64, then my good buddy Matt Witchfinder has just reviewed the compilation for the Spectrum's Mortal Enemy. I'll leave a link to Matt's video in the description, but please let me know what you thought of the games on TNT in the comments, and a like and subscribe, etc, etc. So let's have another quick listen to this episode's theme music, Magical Sound Shower by Jazz C. Brook, which is the 128K title theme to US Gold's Outrun, and I'll be back in 30 seconds with the next review, Cascade Cassette 50 series. Crusher is the 6th game on side A of the Cassette 50 tape, and it's another UTS effort, but this time it's an educational game of sorts. Okay, so you've been captured by the evil Dr. Death and are laid on his crusher. If the addition sum below is correct, press 1. If it's wrong, press 0. Press the wrong button and the crusher descends. Right, let's go for moderate. Okay, so it's simple single-digit questions, and yeah, they're not too difficult, but it's the time. Sometimes you get a bit of a brain freeze while you're trying to think them through. So let's see how many I can get. Oh, that's wrong. Let's hope I don't drop that crusher too close. I'm doing alright. 5 plus 3 is 8, yeah. Come on. We can do it. 17 right so far. I know this is probably aimed at maybe the under 6s or under 8s, but as a 53-year-old man, I'm doing okay. I've got a few wrong, as you can see, the crusher's descending, but I'm up to 30. It is getting a little bit tense now that that's starting to drop. 35 right, 2 plus 2 is 4. Yeah, we're going. 1 plus 1 is 2. 5 plus 4 is not 10. Oh, I got it wrong though. Press the wrong button. And now it's getting closer, and now I'm starting to panic. So it's quite effective, even though it's really, really basic. Come on, get the 50 up. Come on, 50. There we go. That's 50. Oh no, got that one wrong again. Oh, my brain's gone. Brain's gone. Oh no, I let it drop. Squelch. 53. Not bad. I'll take it. Let's just see what it's like when you choose the hard skill level. Okay, oh, blimey, it don't give you much time to even read the numbers, and never mind get the right question pressed. I've got none right so far. Ah, there's one. Squelch. I scored 1 on hard. Yeah, I think I'll stick with moderate. So that's Crusher, an effective game that might be fun for primary school kids to practice the quick recall. I doubt the majority of purchasers would stick with it for more than a couple of goes, but it does its job, and I'm going to score it 2.